The doctor's been in touch. Dr. Ralph, 84850, he always piles in. Hi, doctor. He says, what's this obsession you have, Tom, with Hinkley Point? You're missing the big picture. This is bad news. All we have achieved through austerity has effectively been thrown out of the window, he says. Well, I don't doubt that it has. I think we saw that probably in the first few hours after the Brexit vote decision, and the money that was wiped off there. Of course, gains have been made, but it's down to quantitative easing and all the rest of it, blah, 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 blah. We can go down that route if we want. What we could say, though, is that there might be an opportunity for the government to start borrowing more, if that is indeed what they want to do, at such a low rate of interest, in order to plug the holes in the austerity budgets that we have seen through the last government. What it means, too, for massive investment projects like HS2, arguably, like Hinkley Point C, definitely, is whether or not those things have to go ahead now more than ever, because we need money coming into the economy, given what we're seeing being predicted for the first 2 quarters of next year. And one of the considerations over Hinkley Point, as opposed to the big other projects, is an issue of national security. And I mentioned them before. The Second Bureau of the Third Department of the People's Liberation Army of China, Unit 61398, a unit shrouded in secrecy which is believed to be behind state-sponsored cyber attacks on British infrastructure, British ideas, British money. And the concern seems to be, not confirmed, seems to be part of the reason behind the postponement of Hinkley Point C is down to an issue of how much Chinese state involvement there is in such a critical part of British infrastructure. And the economic circumstances, therefore, have to play into the decision about whether or not the national security issue is a big enough issue to warrant the whole project being stopped. 0345 6060 973 1222. Let's speak to Professor Carl Gottlieb, a cyber security consultant. Afternoon to you, Professor.
Good afternoon, Tom.
How much more do we know about Unit 61398 and Chinese state involvement in hacking of British infrastructure?
It's very much hearsay at this point. There's been quite a few investigations, mainly by private firms such as FireEye and Mandiant, but to be honest, a lot of it is still hearsay, and that's only been one unit that's been called out. There are other organizations within China, within the Chinese government, that we should be worried about.
Do you think it is worthy of such concern, potentially to the point where a decision about Hinkley Point C or the whole project itself is pulled or scrapped?
I think we have to separate the two very much. We spoke recently on this where we know that other countries, other organizations are hacking us, and we're hacking them. And we have to be aware that beggars can't be choosers. We can't have an isolationist approach. And in this kind of climate now, we have to be aware that even our friends are our enemies. We have this kind of co-opetition or frenemy kind of approach where, keep your enemies close and all that.
I remember you saying the other day, or you've described previously, the way in which Britain goes about doing its cyber activity or cyber hacking or whatever it's called overseas. And one of the things you said was that the cables under the Atlantic which carry the internet are monitored by Britain. How?
Yes. So essentially, think of it a bit like if a chap was to go outside of your house and look at your BT cable going out, carrying your internet traffic, just putting a little box on there and then running it off to their car down the road and just looking at your traffic. Now, this is where encrypting your traffic can get quite important, but many of the kind of protocols out there, many of the ways we communicate are trying to be circumvented. And one of the issues at the moment in the IP bill that Theresa May and her government are pushing through is controversial in that they're looking to damage some of the encryption protections we can have for ourselves.
When these wires come in from out of the sea into the UK carrying the internet that we are monitoring, silly question, naive question probably, but one I probably should ask, where do they come in to? Is there a point that you can see, a physical moment when all these wires lift out of the sea somewhere off the coast of the UK somewhere?
They are very well protected, is probably the best way of putting it. So it's not just some big fat cables popping out that you can all get your bucket and spade and walk around, but they are very much protected, and that includes protection under the sea as well. But so we do tap those points there, but it's worth saying that when we have bases that MI6 will control around the world, we will tap within country as well. So things like the US or the UK tapping Iraqi phone lines, things like that, and cables there, it goes on all over the place.
And the problem is, or the concern is, or at least seems to be, that if you give a state which is suspected of carrying out cyber attacks against us more power to be in the country and hold power over, sway over critical infrastructure like nuclear power, you're asking for trouble.
Absolutely. You're asking for trouble, but I would say in a different area. Ultimately, this comes down to leverage. And if we try and take the nuclear, which is quite an emotive word in this, try and take that out of the equation and say, should we be giving them any big influence in political sort of pressure? And arguably, no. But again, we come back to that, can beggars be choosers? And if we are saying that we want to push ahead with very, very expensive projects, then we have to weigh up the risk of the economy versus wider threats.
If Unit 61398 exists in this way, is that to say there are units 61399, 61400? How many units are there that are performing this kind of stuff out of China?
I think we have to say there are many, and some of those are part of the governments, they're government funded, some are sort of arm's length funded, and some are completely rogue within China. You know, if we take Russia, for instance, they've always had many rogue hacking teams out there, so private organizations, organized crime, and traditionally they wouldn't even hack their own country because they were so afraid of Russian forces. Now even they will hack themselves. So we can't look at China or Russia or anyone like that as just one country. There's many organizations within them, some legitimate, some not.
Professor, thank you for your time. Professor Carl Gottlieb, cybersecurity consultant.